Welcome back to the Midnight Gospel, where we fall asleep to stories slower than time itself. Somewhere outside the gates before the crowd, a disciple wakes. The air is soft, not cool exactly, but gentle. There is nothing to rush for. Outside the small tent, the sand still remembers the night, holding onto its darkness like the quiet inside a closed fist. Someone stirs the ashes of a small fire, not speaking, just turning charcoal over and over, as if searching for yesterday's warmth. In the distance, cloth flaps on a line between two crooked sticks. A young boy dozes beside a basket. No one hurries. Even the birds, whatever they are called, with their plain brown feathers, argue only with themselves, never loud enough to wake anyone. Sometimes, the gentlest thing is to just sit and watch the day learn to be day. So that's what I do. My name is not important. I wake most mornings a little before the others, not for prayer or any grand reason. It's just quieter. When the sun hasn't found me yet, there's no real noise but the simple business of being alive. I fold the corner of my blanket. A wooden bowl waits, half filled with crumbs from last night's bread. I run my thumb along the rim, feeling the smoothness, a little cracked, but not broken. Someone walks past, careful not to disturb the goats. They let the hush linger, almost reverent as if afraid the silence might run away. Out here, nothing is finished, but nothing feels urgent either. The sky is the color of poured milk and the low hills are patient, waiting for whatever the day will bring. Sometimes I think about the old stories, the ones with pillars of cloud and seas torn in half. But those seem very far away. Bread falls in the wilderness, they say, enough for each. No more, no less. I haven't seen that. Just a thin layer on the ground like frost that forgot to melt. We call it what we call it. Manna. Or sometimes just breakfast. I take only what fits inside my palm. A little for myself, a little for the older woman who sleeps closest to the tent's edge. The rules are simple: never gather more than you need. By midday, the sun eats what's left anyway. It's strange how full a person can feel with so little. He asked for nothing and still felt full. My hands move slow. There is time to notice the lines in my fingers, the sand pressed deep into each one. Time to notice a breath, to let it go. Inside my chest, a quiet peace settles, as if I've been given a blanket even when I didn't see it offered. No one notices the prayer that slips out, barely a whisper, but it is heard. Even the silence is holy. Let this moment stretch as long as it needs to. You don't need to stay awake for the story, it will stay awake for you. Welcome back to the Midnight Gospel, where we fall asleep to stories slower than time itself. Somewhere outside the gates, mist is still holding to the ground, quiet and blue like old linen. It hasn't decided yet to leave. Before anyone notices, you hear the faint call of a dove, nothing special, just one voice among many, tucked inside the waking silence. The sky waits, not rushing, not urgent. There is a promise of sun, but it hides soft behind clouds, almost forgetting its place. Somewhere, water drips off a courtyard pot, a slow and careful sound. It keeps count of the minutes, though no one asks it to. A disciple wakes, or maybe it's just someone ordinary. Maybe they aren't thinking about miracles at all, just the ache of their ankles, the cool stones against their feet, the breath that gathers before the day begins. The world hasn't stretched yet, it lies low and still, the way bread rests before the oven. You can almost smell yesterday's smoke curling from the broken oven, faded into the air. Someone has swept the doorstep but left a little pile, no hurry, just a mark that life was here before. Far in the fields, a lamb calls for its mother only once. The sound folds back into silence. Nothing comes next. Let this moment stretch like a slow waking. There is time for everything and no rush for any of it. No one speaks yet. It is safer that way. Even the wind moves carefully, barely lifting a thread of hair. You lie still, or maybe you sit at the low doorway, watching the dew hang on the thin grass, each drop holding its own tiny mourning. The crowd is elsewhere. The stories, the wonders, even the small arguments are somewhere outside for later. It is just you and this silent blue hour and the hush that belongs to everyone and no one. You don't need to stay awake for the story. It will stay awake for you. The ground is quiet before the sun. The air is waiting, soft, cool, curled around the ankles. Every step leaves a hush in the sand. I walk slow, slower than my own thoughts, weighing nothing in my hands yet, but knowing I'll leave with enough. Morning comes folded in mist. Even the birds hold still. I kneel sleepy-eyed as if nothing here expects more from me. The world doesn't hurry, not in these hours before the heat finally arrives. I look to the horizon, empty, and breathe, as if the day itself is a long-held sigh. At my feet, dew shimmers like a promise. Around me, others are bent at their shadows, each gathering small, plain handfuls. We fill our baskets without talking, just the soft rustle of reed against grass, the gentle sound of lives moving quietly together. No one glances up. We have learned the shape of manna between our fingers, thin, light, patient, the weight of enough for today. There is no need to rush. I gather slow, sometimes stopping with my hands in the wet weeds, letting the peace settle around my knuckles. Every now and then I press my palm into the coolness, leaving a print no one will ever see. Even this silence is holy. A mother nearby stacks little rounds in the crook of her arm. A child yawns, not really helping, dreaming as he kneels beside her. Their shadows stretch across the earth like spilled water. Each of us alone but not separate, soft footfalls, shallow breathing, a gathering of not only bread but time. The more I pick up, the less I want. I notice a beetle tracing a line between the clumps of bread and move slowly enough that he completes his journey. Nothing here needs to hurry. The sun is still low. The morning listens. Some of us pray with our eyes closed, but most do it inside or not at all. The act itself feels like trust. Bread that comes without bargain, manna that asks no question, just there when we arrive, like it grew overnight only for this restfulness. I watch one of the elders, her back bowed, movements the same each day, quiet and steady. She never takes more than she could hold. Each piece goes into her basket, soft as a blessing. She asked for nothing and still felt full. Sometimes I look up, expecting to see some sign that this isn't just dew and small miracles. But the only thing above is cloud and sky. The world turns gently. God perhaps watches from the quietest seat, unnoticed but near. Let this moment stretch. When the baskets fill, we do not count. We know by the weight in the crook of the elbow or the balance in our steps. I carry mine home with the steady, slow gait of one who knows the way by heart. The path is silent save for the swish of woven sandals and the faint brush of crumbs falling back to earth. The tent waits, open to the sand and light. I empty my basket wordlessly onto a clean cloth, nothing but pale, round pieces tumbled together like scattered stones. Across the way, someone hums a melody low and almost lost. The fabric of the day is loose and gentle. Even the children play quietly now, their laughter caught by the rising heat. Later, I will knead a few of the rounds into breakfast, heat them on a stone, and taste the quiet in every bite. There is a sweetness hidden in simplicity, a contentment that comes in not striving. The gift is not just the bread, but the ease of its finding. Even this stillness feeds something deeper than hunger. When midday comes and the sun burns off the last cool lingerings, I sit beneath the shadow of the tent flap. I run my fingers over the piles we took in. Not too much, never too little. Just what our own hands lifted from the soft dust. Sometimes I close my eyes for a while. The world holds steady and I let my thoughts go unformed. The night listens with you. There are hours left before anything is needed. I watch dust drift in a thin beam of light, slow as a prayer no one says aloud. In the corner, a cousin mends a sandal, humming under her breath. Life settles into its gentle patterns. Time slows, stretches like dough. No one interrupts. Bread cools on the cloth. The air hums with waiting for nothing. I fold and refold the same square of linen just to feel its softness, the comfort of habit, the boring loveliness of these pauses. To linger is allowed. There is no one measuring worth here. The labor is only in patience, in being ready to receive what was laid down, silent, outside our doors. As dusk drapes its quiet shawl over the day, lamps are lit, not because it's dark, but because we like the glow. There will be stories not loud or important, just recountings of small kindness, a basket shared, a meal saved, a silence kept. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. Tonight the manna will spoil if we hold on to it. There's nothing to clutch, nothing to save except the memory of its gathering, the ordinary miracle of enough. Tomorrow will come, and we will go again, soft, unhurried, a procession of hands trusting in quiet provision. God walks slowly, too, even now, looking at the little round bread stacked on their faded cloth. I feel kept. Emptiness is not loneliness here. The Lord knows my breath. Sleep gathers where baskets sit empty, and blessing finds me between one slow moment and the next, safe, unnoticed, and finally at rest. The sun sits low, painting the sand in a quiet amber. I gather slow handfuls of stones from the soft edge of camp, one by one, placing them into a small ring, careful not to let them clatter. Each one is smooth and warm, holding the memory of the day's heat. They seem content to give it back to the fading world. Little by little, the others have gone about their own work. You hear distant voices, hushed by distance and hunger and the end of light. My part is always the same, to prepare a space, not for anything grand, but so that we can sit and remember. With the stones arranged, I dust a cloth across my lap, then fold it, corner to corner. The day leaves small crumbs, traces of bread that was always just enough. I brush them into the sand. Bread is never wasted here. Even what falls becomes part of tomorrow's path. It was bread that appeared where dew once dressed the ground, thin and almost nothing, but it kept us full. We were told not to save it, to trust the morning, to prepare again when the sun returned. No one talks about it now. We just remember with our hands, folding, gathering, brushing, smoothing. Each movement a quiet prayer, even if no one names it aloud. Tonight, as the light fades, I set a little bundle of twigs beside the stones. Someone else will light them. My part is the preparation. I press my palms flat against the stones, feeling them breathe out leftover warmth. I let the moment stretch. The air is thick and still, no wind to rush us. It gives time for every little thing to matter. I smooth the cloth again and set it down. Then I pause and listen, waiting for dusk to settle completely. The night listens with you, no miracle in sight, not now. Only half-heard stories and the way warm stones glow in the quiet, reminding us to remember, even this silence is holy. Tomorrow we'll gather again just as we were told. For now the day empties itself slowly, and preparation is a kind of remembering. Nothing is lost, nothing is wasted. Everything, even the smallest act, belongs here. If you are listening, let everything soften: your eyes, your breath, your shoulders. Let the plain quiet fill you slowly, like the day's last heat leaving the stones. All is prepared for night. All is held. The path between the tents is pale this morning, quiet as an empty bowl. I wake when the first light sweeps in beneath the worn edge of the cloth, dust soft against my toes. Someone is already moving nearby, her shadow sliding between canvas walls like a thought not spoken, crossing from dusk to dawn. Every morning is stitched to the last. No one asks for more. My jar waits beside the sleeping mat, wooden handle smoothed by years, rim chipped by stories I never heard. It fits into my hand the same way a folded hope would, not heavy, not light. I listen for footsteps, for laughter from the goats, for the thick hush before the sun rises clean and slow above the scrubby hills. With every breath I remember the weight of yesterday. No one speaks at first. We gather at the edges of day, each of us cradling jars, baskets, or nothing but the ache of another morning. I watch the old woman trace her finger over last night's dew on the tent cloth, her lips barely moving. Some say she talks to God before her coffee, but I think she just likes the sound of silence pressing against the world. Even this silence is holy. The way to the well is always the same. You don't need to look up. The ground guides, ridged with footpaths, littered with yesterday's footprints. Dust rises and clings to our ankles, a soft reminder that we are moving, even if only by habit. I carry my jar the way I carried the questions I never dared to ask. Some prayers stay inside, shy things, nameless as breathing, shaped only by the hush that follows a sigh. My mother once said, God finds what is hidden before we speak. I think of that as I walk, letting each step tug the loose threads of worry from my heart. Let this moment stretch. We pass a fig tree, thick with shade and humming with quiet. A boy sits beneath it, hands in the dirt, drawing spirals, erasing them, drawing again. He looks up and grins when I pass but says nothing. Sometimes the best prayers are small gestures, like his smile or the comfort of sitting in the cool, watching the first light slip across the village roofs. In line at the well we stand close but no one hurries. A woman in blue braids kneads bread beneath her shawl, knuckles dusted with flour. She hums, eyes closed. Another shifts her feet and counts the crusts left in her basket. A child leans against his father's hip, nudging the man's robe, but the father only stares at a rock between his sandals, lost in some wordless asking. The world feels held together by questions too quiet to shape aloud. Sometimes I imagine the manna from long ago, how people woke up to find the ground sugared with hope, no one knowing quite what it was or how long it would last. Some mornings, when the dusk glows gold and the air smells unfamiliar, I let my mind wander to that hush, that trembling soft bread resting on the earth. No one needed to understand it, they just gathered what was there. Maybe that's all prayer is, stretching out your hands, gathering what the day has left for you. The jar is heavier returning, cool against my legs. The walk back is slow. I watch the pattern of my feet in the sand, sometimes matching the stride of a neighbor, sometimes falling behind. Around me, voices wake up, someone teasing about a crooked loaf, someone offering the last of a date. I answer with a nod, no words needed. The night listens with you. Afternoon folds itself into the tents. A neighbor's goat bleats, clipped and stubborn. I feed our chickens, counting softly, careful not to wake the dog still dreaming by the fence. The bread from morning has gone hard at the edges. I tear it into pieces and soak them in oil, watching crumbs dissolve into golden pools. Later, I sweep the floor in circles. The sun through the canvas wall is warm, orange, gentle, not insistent. Each bit of dust I find is a reminder. Nothing is too small to notice. Nothing is wasted. Some prayers never leave my lips, but I think they rise like dust on quiet afternoons, curling upward without needing a name. Evening drifts in. Someone lights a lamp 2 tents over. The fabric glows, soft and gold, flickering at the edges. I sit beside my jar and trail fingers in the cool water, tracing circles, then letting them still. There is time here, not rushed, not counted. Only slow breaths and the sound of someone folding linens next door. The night comes so gently, I don't notice it arriving. Shadows tuck themselves in the corners, a cat slips between the pens, the sky folds back its blue. I listen for the last sounds, feet scuffing the path, a baby sighing 4 tents away, an old man humming low and cracked, as if remembering a song. I settle down. My jar is empty now, but my hands feel full. I think of all the things I never asked for, all the prayers I prayed without words, all the mornings the manna waited just beyond waking. Quiet miracles scattered before anyone noticed. He asked for nothing and still felt full. Let this quiet last. Let the night carry your breath for a while. Even in the smallest moments, dust between the tents, dew on the cloth, bread pooled in oil, something holy remains just out of sight. You do not need to find the words. The story remembers them for you. There are certain hours when even the rocks must rest, and on days like this, with the sun leaning hard over the sand, most things seem to sleep. We moved through the morning quietly, carrying baskets between tents, sorting what was left of yesterday's bread, folding small cloths, not saying much at all. The small world outside our shelters went golden and slow. I could hear feet shuffling, someone scraping dried lentils into a cup, ropes tightening as another neighbor weighed down the corners of a faded sheet, making more shade. These sounds felt gentle, as if the day itself was breathing, softer and softer, inviting us to drift through silence. No one hurried today. There was no reason. We had gathered what we needed at dawn, just as we did each morning. That simple search for today's bread, glancing at the ground for the thin crust that melted away by noon. Some said it tasted like honey to me. It always tasted like what I needed, no more, no less. After that, there was nothing left to chase. I found shade by the low clay wall that marked the edge of our camp. my knees drawn up beneath my robe. The wall was warm, the ground cool, and the little circle of shade barely fit two if you sat close. I was there long before Lior found me, his arms heavy with chopped reeds he needed to weave into mats. He never asked if he could share the shadow. He just sat, sighing softly, like one who'd waited all morning to stop pretending he was busy. We didn't speak at first. Near us, a stray dog circled, then settled at our feet, snout twitching in sleep. The hush grew thick enough that I forgot my hands and let them relax in my lap. Let this moment stretch. Even this silence is holy. Up above, the air shimmered. Around us, the world faded to faint movement, the hum of a fly, sandals dragging through sand, the distant laughter of a child running wild miles away. The land itself seemed to listen, heavy with the sun's slow blessing. My eyelids fluttered heavier and heavier. Lior picked at the reeds, splitting them with his thumb. For a long time he did not look up. Eventually he asked, "Did you find much this morning?" "Enough," I said, my voice quiet but not tired. "It never feels like enough until it is." He smiled a soft, crooked smile, all lines and patience. He did not reply. Instead, he placed a woven mat beneath us, so the backs of our legs would not burn against the sun-baked clay. Small kindnesses made sacred by their ordinariness. He asked for nothing and still felt full. A shadow drifted over our faces, one of the bigger linens blowing in the open wind. For a breath or two the light changed, and all the sharpness of midday slipped away. Lior stretched, arms overhead, groaning gently. I watched the shape of his feet pressed into the sand, side by side with mine. As the wind settled, I counted the soft shapes drawn by our sandals, dozens of lines weaving back and forth, making patterns on the ground like old stories, too quiet for anyone but God to read. Time went syrup thick. Someone nearby was humming, almost too low to hear. Perhaps mending a tunic, perhaps only trying to pass the heat. The air tasted of bread and dust. I let my eyes wander to a row of fig trees, their branches curled like fingers, giving just enough shade for a bird or child to hide. I remembered waiting in that shade years ago, the cool weight of fruit in my hand, the sweet ache of summer afternoons stretched long. Today, the branches held only leaves, shaking when the wind turned eastward. The night listens with you. A little later, Lior offered me water, cool from a clay jar, tasting faintly of last night's smoke. We shared, passing the small cup back and forth. The springs had been slow to refill, but this was enough. Lior always saved water for the hottest hour, even when others forgot. I watched the way his hands cupped the jar, careful, not greedy. He treated every swallow like a secret, soft and safe. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. Sheep scattered in the far field, chased by a boy with a sling, his feet bare and hair wild. I watched as they slipped around stones and vanished behind the farthest tent. Lior followed my gaze but said nothing. All the while, I could feel the hush in the camp deepen, as if voices were gathering beneath the earth, waiting for the right moment to return. But for now, everything felt suspended, nothing urgent, nothing expected, just the slow drift of two tired souls sharing shade in the middle of everything. Each day followed its shape. We gathered, we rested, we mended what the world wore thin and accepted what was given. The bread we found at dawn melted if we waited too long, so we learned. Over years, over hundreds of slow, patient mornings, to trust what was placed in our hands. Only today mattered. Only these hours, round and warm as a loaf, let this moment stretch. Let the boredom be sacred. Sometimes, Lior would speak, filling the quiet with stories about his childhood or memories of planting onions near the riverbank. Sometimes I would ask about the road ahead or if he'd seen the last caravan pass. Most days, though, we let the quiet stretch long. There's a comfort in knowing someone is near by choice, not out of need. Our friendship ran gentle, like water under rock, unseen but always shaping the soft earth beneath our feet. The sun crawled on and the shade moved, growing thinner by the wall. Gradually, people began to return to the world, lifting linen shades, laughing about nothing. Someone shouted for water. A woman called a child to help bring in the goats. Life picked up softly, as if no one wanted to disturb what had been sleeping in the heat. The two of us lingered a bit longer, letting the last of the cool cling to our skin. Shadows shifted, and finally, even we stood, brushing sand off our robes, folding the little mat. I blinked, squinting at the pale sky, everything brighter, lighter, as if the rest had remade us. My soul felt quiet, even as voices gathered again. Somewhere out of sight, the miracle had come and gone. Bread for today and silence for the hour in between. You can let yourself rest here. The day knows how to wait. The world will hold your place until you wake. There were mornings when the bread felt softer than clay, and he never knew why. He would touch the loaf, press his thumb into the crust, and feel the cool air settle on his knuckles. He ate slowly, chewed longer than needed, watching a shadow climb the far wall near the doorway. After breakfast, he gathered his shawl. The sun was gentle and pale, not warm enough for short sleeves, but bright in a tired way, like a candle near the end of the wick. Outside, the world was dust and straw. Someone laughed over the wall, a sound left over from yesterday. He had nothing urgent to do. Sometimes that made him nervous, as if he'd missed a message hidden beneath the jars or tucked behind the gate. Most days, though, it was all right. He sat on the rise behind the garden, where the earth dipped into a shallow hill. From here, you could see the path that bent near the almond trees and follow it all the way to the meeting place, past 3 broken stones and the old fig tree leaning from the years. The world looked quietly spun together. Clouds drifted in and out of themselves, just as people do when they forget what they were searching for. Let this moment stretch. He squinted up. The blue behind the drifting was almost white at the edges. Sometimes he tried to count the grains of silence, as if the wind had gathered them just for him. Even the insects held still. The hillside's hush feathered into his hands. Even this silence is holy. Nothing called for him, so he watched the sky. 3 birds came threading the air, first far away, then close enough to cast a thin shadow on the loose stones at his feet. Their wings did not flick or flutter. They glided careless as breath. He watched and tried not to name them. It was enough to see one, and then another. Then the third. He remembered how, when he was a child, he'd wanted to catch a bird. He'd wait for their shadows, throw crumbs, whisper promises to the empty air. But today he didn't want to hold anything. It was enough to watch, letting the winged shapes cross from hill to sky and away again. The night listens with you, his knees tucked into his palms. The sun moved just a little. He watched it paint a warm stripe on his sleeve. Below him, a goat shifted and found tender grass. Somewhere, water dripped to ground. He let himself breathe that quiet into his bones, the ordinary taste of a day untroubled. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. He didn't feel hungry, not yet. He held a piece of bread in his fist, soft from the morning, and smiled at how whole a person could feel without asking for more. He asked for nothing, and still felt full. Each swallow a small piece, when a breeze rose up he let it move through his hair. Someone down by the well called out, just words not meant for him. He stayed where he was, knees pressed to earth. Time drifted slow, winding around his ankles and wrists until he forgot to keep it. Let this moment last. Another bird called, a sound that could have been a yawn. The world was wide and empty, but not lonely. He was alone, but the trees and dirt and bread made good company. The work would wait. He had mending to do, water to carry, lentils to stir, but none of it mattered yet. The silence still had work to do. The three birds swept the hill one last time, turned on the wind and were gone. He exhaled, long and slow, not sure what he had witnessed. Exactly. Maybe nothing at all, maybe everything. You can let the quiet spread through you now. There's nothing left to do. The evening gathers itself. The night is breathing, slow as grace. The morning was gentle. I watched my mother's hands, soft and slow, untie the last knot of our basket. She never rushed, not even when the shadows slanted across the floor. Before words woke anyone else, she passed me a round of bread, still warm from the stones. Beneath her palm, I found the hush I remembered from my childhood, the way she calmed a day before it began, just by setting down a cloth without a sound. We went out together, through dust that lifted at our ankles, toward the place where the elders sat. Our baskets creaked in rhythm, not heavy, not light. I liked hearing her breathe beside me. Each breath was a lesson without words, as if peace could be handed down, the way bread is handed from hand to hand. I never asked, she never explained. Still, when I mimicked her pace, silence felt a little less empty. We paused beneath a palm tree, its shade patchy and soft. She leaned against its trunk, eyes half closed in the quiet sun. There was no story to be told, just the sound of a far-off goat and the settling sigh of tired roots in dry earth. Most days moved like this, barely moving at all. When the elders reached out, palms open, my mother gave bread to each one. Their fingers brushed hers, slow, careful, remembering. I watched them linger on the loaf, then her sleeve, maybe for warmth or something older. No one spoke of pain, but their shoulders bent less as they ate. Sometimes healing doesn't come with a word, just a presence, and the patience to stay near while time works quietly. Let this moment stretch. We found a clear stone to sit on and watched the dust swirl. I wondered if she noticed me noticing. The way her listening made space for my silence, too. The day tasted like lentils and new grains, like promises gathered just outside the tent. Even this silence is holy by midday. We carried empty baskets back through the heat. She stopped to mend a sandal, her gesture unhurried, as if the sun waited for her. I tried not to fidget. She let me be still. Sometimes her hand would rest on my shoulder, not to move me forward, just to remind me I was here and so was she. We spoke about nothing, and even nothing felt full enough. Beneath her palm my heart slowed. I remembered the scripture, how manna was gathered in the hush of dawn, enough for everyone, never more. There was quiet holiness tucked in each small piece. I think healing is like that, taken in by the handful, passed down before anyone knew to ask. The night listens with you. We watch the sky soften and fold, blue into gold, gold into gray. Bugs flickered just above the grass. Her breath was steady beside me. A prayer left unheard by others hung between us. Gratitude, quiet as bread broken in the afterglow. You can let this stillness hold you. No one noticed the blessing, but it was here. By mid-morning, the courtyard grows quiet. The loud voices drift away, all but the breath of a soft wind against stone. I move through sunlight as if through water, arms slow, shoulders loose. The jar of oil rests easy in my palm, weight enough to remind me I am here, but not so heavy I think of letting go. Across the yard, a fig falls without a sound. I pause for less than a thought, watching it settle in the dust, half shadowed by the broken wall. No one notices the small things, not really. Still, that hush belongs to the day, and the day carries it onward. Inside, the scent of barley lingers near the oven, old flour and earth, with a sweeter trace from yesterday's loaf. Someone left their robe folded on the bench. I smooth its corner with an easy hand, sweeping a fingertip over each invisible crease. My feet brush the dirt. Light shifts quietly across the stones, almost warm, almost gold. I lift the olive oil, simple stuff, cloudy, cold, and pour a streak over my skin where the back turned red from sun. Every motion echoes an older one, done 100 times without anyone seeing. The oil beads, then slides away. Let this moment stretch like a quiet walk down the hill, sandals whispering a promise that only I can hear. The potter's son left 2 bowls by the door. One is chipped. Water gathers at the base, blue as olive leaves. I tip the edge to pour out the dust, but a little always stays behind, the ordinary kind, not worth worrying over. There is the giving, and there is what remains. Both have their place. Sometimes my mother would rub a dab of oil into her palms before baking. She said it made the bread sing, though I never heard it, not with my ears. I do it now by habit, sliding my thumb along the lines in my hand, watching the pale sheen disappear. There's no magic in it. Still, afterward, I feel steadier than before, anointing through nothing special, just motion, just time. Even this silence is holy. I go to the clay jar by the entryway, the big one that holds rain. The lid feels cool, rough beneath my fingers. I nudge it off, dip a ladle, and drink. My shadow in the water isn't quite mine, shaped more by light and wind than it is by me. I let the world remake me quietly as I go about my day. At the threshold, I kneel and wipe a glob of mud from the doorstep, pressing my thumb into the cool clay. No one has told me to do this, but someone always must. My work is a whisper, easily missed. Clay under my nails, oil on my skin, not much to look at, but it is enough. The sun hides behind a cloud just for a breath, just to cool the stones. In the pause, I notice the world's hush deepening. The goats huddle near the wall, flies spiral lazily above a bruised pear. The day lingers in the heat, half awake, half dream. Let the weariness come. It belongs here too, out in the lane. A woman lets her shawl slip while she sifts grain. I watch her a moment, not because she needs help, but because there is a softness in her motion, a quiet offering, nothing asked in return. She rubs flour from her wrists, leaves a faint white trail along the stones. Everything she touches carries a trace of her, just like the oil, just like the dust. I sweep the bench, press the towel into my palm. Clay dust settles, soft as evening light. a soft anointing, a sacredness in every unremarkable thing. The night listens with you, a neighbor passes by, nodding without a word. He smells faintly of firewood and sweet grass, footprints marking the sand where the dew once lay. Nothing much is said, but I feel the blessing in his glance, light as the air before rain. Bread rises in a bowl on the shelf. I check it once, then let it be. Not everything needs tending. Sometimes rest is the work too. Let this moment deepen. Let it carry you to the edge of dream. Soon the courtyard will grow long with shadows. The light will fade, gentle and true. Yet the oil still glistens faintly on my wrist. Clay settles in the lines of my hands. I close the jar, and the day closes too, in soft and ordinary motion. He asked for nothing and still felt full. No one noticed the prayer, but it was heard. No one had much to do this morning, not in the way people talk about importance. I gathered a basket, the one with the crack through the handle, and went to check on the stores, because that's what you do, even if nothing inside has changed. On the way, someone walked past, humming a song without words, just low and warm. The kind of sound that makes you remember there's always a song, even in the dust. I passed a patch of empty ground where once the dew settled thick. It's empty now, but I always pause there. Maybe it's the quietness, maybe it's hope, or memory of what hope felt like. My feet rested in the shade not because I needed to, but because I could. You can take a breath here, let it find its own way in, and back out again. Someone was sweeping slowly, the way you do when you've got nothing to sweep for but time itself. I thought about stopping to help, but I only watched, liking the small sound of bristles on stone. It matched the rhythm inside me, calm and unfinished. At the back wall, where the sun leans in late in the day, there are always crumbs left over from the meal before. I gathered them, not because they were precious, but because routine shapes comfort. Folding the cloth, I remembered the way my mother used to smooth the corners flat, pressing out the creases nobody else could see. Let this moment stretch. No need to rush, even if everyone else moves just a little quicker. Much later, I found myself near the old olive tree. Nothing happened there, not today. But the leaves shimmered like little mirrors, catching bits of light that nobody had asked for. I stayed until the stillness felt full. Someone called my name. I answered, but quietly. Sometimes answers are best whispered, so the world doesn't wake up too soon. Later, when the day bent at its softest edge, I carried a jug of water from the well. The water was cool, like stone in the dark. I only carried enough for one, but anyone could have come and shared it if they wanted. No one prayed aloud. If there was a blessing, it stayed thin and hidden, like a thread under the hem. I listened for it. Sometimes you can if you aren't looking too hard. The night listens with you, and sometimes that is enough. The last of the bread is wrapped tight against the cool. Hands fold the cloth, corners in, not with purpose but with habit, because that's how things are left safe for morning. Every sound grows thinner as night leans close. Someone's voice drifts low outside, words about a neighbor's goats or maybe the turn of wind. It isn't important to listen. The fire in the corner has gone to glowing, hunched and tired. Pots rest heavy. The work of the day breathes out, just as you do now, and breathes in silence. Even the walls, rough with old sunlight, seem to soften under shadows. Dust on the sill hasn't been swept. Nobody will care until dawn. There is nothing needed. Slippers too tight from the heat are nudged away. Bare feet test the cool of packed earth, warm at first, then a little colder as you stand, then softer again as you stop thinking about it. A slow drink of water from the clay cup. You tip it back, eyes closed. Quiet fills up the space between each swallow. Someone once said water felt sweet at night. Maybe that's true for you now here. Above, the old rafters don't creak with wind tonight. There is a hush like the world holds its breath, and it's fine if you let your breath move slow, too. Sitting down, you pause before unrolling your mat, just looking, just letting the quiet gather, a gentle hush that wraps around every tired thing. No one watches the way you smooth the linen. Still, you do. The cloth has a small rip near one corner, the edges soft as worn-out thoughts. You find it with your thumb and press it flat, nothing more. A few crumbs from supper cradle in the folds. They stay. Tomorrow brings sweeping, but for now, let the crumbs keep company. The taste of manna still lingers, so faint it's barely there. It will keep until the sun says it's time. That miracle wandered among the tents, but tonight is too slow for wonders. Only the steady hush of hunger gone by and mourning too far to chase. Across the room, someone yawns. You mirror the shape with your own mouth, more out of kindness than tiredness. Sometimes it feels like weariness passes from soul to soul, just by presence, not by touch. A strip of moon finds the corner where your mat lies waiting. The glow is gentler than fire, easier on eyes that have looked at too much dust. Night murmurs through every beam of the little house. You settle onto the mat, shoulder against cool linen. It gives a faint smell, clean but threaded through with bread and dirt and hope from long ago. The fire's last coal shifts. You can almost count the breaths of the house, slow, slow, slower. You let your own breath match it, as if the house might keep you sleeping. Let this moment stretch, fingers curl at your ribs, idle, tracing the shapes of how the day is leaving. All the voices have drained out. If there's a prayer in you, it's buried deep in how your chest rises and falls. There's no hurry here. Not for words, not for silence. Just waiting, letting the hush build. Even this silence is holy. You listen for steps outside, maybe a neighbor finishing chores or a child running back too late, and when there's nothing, you listen still. Stillness is not empty. It's full of all the things that came before. It's heavy with warmth and all the watching that goes unseen. You turn your face to the wall. The roughness hides a memory from before your feet were worn. There were other beds, other long evenings, but tonight is only this. A cloak for warmth, once folded, now pulled close. The weight is just enough. A palm presses absently at your side, comfort with no audience, no purpose. In the dark, you remember how the day was spent. Water lifted, cloth rinsed, fire coaxed, words exchanged. All so small, yet when nothing is left to do, it feels complete. You breathe again, careful to notice. Air in, a little dry and brown from clay walls. Air out slower, adrift like fine flour. Night has room for your breathing, for every gentle thing you couldn't say out loud. Here, God is not a visitor or a voice. Here, He is the quiet between sounds, the slow patience before rest, the hush in your hands as you fold yourself small and soft. The lamp fades in the corner, flickering once. You let it go, eyes closed. Let the night listen with you. Even the aches in your heels, worn from walking, feel like part of the peace. You earned each step. They did not go unnoticed by earth, by you. It's all right to let them rest now. Tomorrow is hungry for its hours, but tonight can keep you with it. No one rushes you. Nothing breaks this stillness but the faint sigh of the cooling fire, the distant shuffle of someone you trust. If a prayer cools in your throat, let it sit. There are no perfect words needed. Everything needed is already here. Not because you asked or wished or worried, just because it is. Bread soft in the folds, fire dull in the stone pit, water gone but remembered and quiet, layered thick as sleep. Another night, another sacred boredom. You curl slow into yourself. The Lord's silent watching is enough, even when you do not name it aloud. He asked for nothing and still felt full. Let your eyes rest heavy. You are not left behind. You are not unnoticed. You are held. Nothing more happens, and that is holy. The room is quiet. I lay my folded linen at the edge of the mat, smoothing it